Hey everybody, it's Ron from Pick Dawgz, and this is Ron's Rundown. We're going to go over the MLB games scheduled for Sunday, June 4th, 2023. Now if you like what you see, make sure to give this video a big thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to put your baseball picks in the comments section below, and if you're looking for my best bets, you can find those at the premium picks tab at pickdawgz.com. Alrighty, let's get into it. Here are the games for Sunday in Major League Baseball. First up, it's the St. Louis Cardinals taking on the Pittsburgh Pirates. Miles Mikolas and Rich Hill are your projected starters. We got two pitchers really going in different directions right now. Miles Mikolas coming off his best start of the season in his last game against the Kansas City Royals. 8 innings of work, no earned runs, 10 strikeouts. We don't really think of Miles Mikolas as a strikeout guy. He's more of a pitch-to-contact pitcher, but he was able to miss a lot of bats in that game, and he's actually been much better on the road this season, believe it or not, than at Busch Stadium, as he's got a 2.91 ERA in his road starts, 3-0 record in 34 innings of work, pretty low opponent's batting average as well. I think he pitches well in this game, and Rich Hill, his last start was not his best. Rich Hill was doing pretty good in the middle of May, but then his last two starts, really, 5 earned runs against the Rangers, 6 earned against the Giants on the road. Can't really trust him in this game. Give me the St. Louis Cardinals on the money line in this early start time. Next up, it's the Philadelphia Phillies taking on the Washington Nationals. We're going to see Ranger Suarez and Trevor Williams on the mound in this one. Now, the Nationals have hit lefties very well this season, and although Ranger Suarez looked pretty good in his last game, that was against the New York Mets, who we know have not really hit lefties well this year or last year. So, Suarez still gave up a home run in that game. He only had 4 strikeouts and 6 2/3. I think he struggles in this start against the Nationals team. Like I said, good numbers against lefties, but also a really low strikeout rate against left-handed pitchers. Trevor Williams has been better at Nationals Park this season than on the road, a 3.09 ERA in 23 1/3 innings at Nationals Park. I think he's good enough here. He's given the Nationals some good innings this season. 55 innings of work, a sub-4 ERA. Give me the Washington Nationals on the money line at Nationals Park. Next up, we see the Tampa Bay Rays taking on the Boston Red Sox. We're going to see Taj Bradley and Tanner Houck as the projected starters for now, but there's no official lineup for this game because of the doubleheader on Saturday, so we could see a pitching change. In this matchup, you see Taj Bradley's pitching so well on the road so far. I know it's a small sample size, only about 15 innings for each, his home and road splits. But, at Tropicana Field, a 6.43 ERA on the road, a 1.13 ERA, a 161 opponent's batting average, 21 strikeouts, and only 1 home run allowed. I know Fenway Park is a very hitter-friendly ballpark, but this weekend the weather hasn't really benefited the hitters, in my opinion. So, I do think Bradley can put together a good outing. And Tanner Houck, he's been okay for the Red Sox as of late, but he has struggled at home this season, a 6.00 ERA. His last start wasn't his best, 4 innings, 4 earned runs against Arizona. That was on the road, but the Red Sox are 0-4 on the money line in Houck's last 4 starts. I can't really trust him here against a very good Tampa Bay Rays lineup. So give me the Tampa Bay Rays on the money line on the road. Next up, we see the Milwaukee Brewers taking on the Cincinnati Reds. We're going to see Adrian Hauser taking on Ben Lively in this matchup. I really wasn't expecting too much from Ben Lively at the Major League level this season, but he's pitching really well for Cincinnati. A 1.99 ERA overall this year. Good strikeout numbers, a low whip at .93. Sure, his numbers are a little bit better on the road compared to at Great American Ballpark, but still, solid 2.45 ERA, 14 2/3 innings, and 17 strikeouts at home this season. When on the other side, Adrian Hauser, 4.07 ERA because of his last start. His last start against the Toronto Blue Jays, 11 base hits, 7 total runs, 6 of those were earned, 3 walks allowed as well. So, coming off his worst start of the season, now going to Great American Ballpark against the Reds team that offensively has been a lot better in the last couple of weeks than they were at the beginning of the season. I'm going to take a shot here with Cincinnati on the money line. Next up, it's the Oakland Athletics taking on the Miami Marlins. Paul Blackburn and Sandy Alcantara are your starters. It's really tough to get behind the Marlins at this kind of price. Sandy Alcantara, a 4.93 ERA this season. He's still a minus 200 favorite in this game because he's facing the Oakland A's. But, Sandy, he had a really good spot last time against the San Diego Padres. 6 1/3 innings, gives up 4 earned runs and 5 walks. That was a game against San Diego where the Marlins were home, at Lone Depot Park, and the Padres going into that game. Some of the worst hitting numbers against right-handed pitchers in baseball at the time in the last month, OPS-wise, isolated power-wise. So it was, a really good spot for Sandy to put together a bounce-back outing, a kind of a breakout outing. But he struggled in that game. The Padres went on to win that one 9-4. And Paul Blackburn, he was an all-star last year. His first start this season at the Major League level, 4 innings, 1 run, 6 strikeouts against a very good Atlanta Braves lineup. And that was actually a 7-2 Oakland A's win outright. I don't know if the A's win this game outright, but I'm going to take the 1.5 runs here with Oakland. I think they keep this one close. Next up, we see the Toronto Blue Jays taking on the New York Mets. We're going to see Yusei Kikuchi and Kodai Senga on the mound in this one. Both these starting pitchers have pretty good strikeout stuff, but they also can have some control issues in their game from time to time. But, when you look at this game, Kodai Senga in good form going into this start. His last start, 7 innings, 9 strikeouts, no earned runs, no walks, no home runs, only 1 base hit in a 2-0 Mets win. On the other side, Yusei Kikuchi, in his last start, 5 walks allowed to the Milwaukee Brewers, a team that's not very good against left-handed pitchers. He gave up 2 runs, a home run as well. He's given up at least 1 home run in each of his last 4 starts. The Mets do a really good job at limiting strikeouts against left-handed pitchers. Even though their numbers in terms of OPS and isolated power aren't the best, they have a very low strikeout rate in the last 30 days, 16% around against left-handed pitchers. So I do think that this matchup benefits them. With Senga in good form, I'm going to take the New York Mets on the money line at Citi Field. Next up, it's the Los Angeles Angels taking on the Houston Astros. Griffin Canning and J.P. France are your starters. This is a tough game for me. I'd rather just take the plus money with the Los Angeles Angels because I kind of view this game as a coin flip type of contest. As Griffin Canning and J.P. France, kind of similar pitchers so far this year. You got J.P. France at an ERA at 4, Griffin Canning at 4.89. But both of these guys, in their last starts, they racked up the strikeouts, gave up a couple of homers. J.P. France a home run, 4 earned against the Twins in 6 innings with 8 strikeouts. Griffin Canning, 6 innings, 2 home runs allowed, 3 earned runs, and 9 strikeouts against the White Sox. I do think Canning has improved quite a bit in the last couple of outings. Before that game against Chicago, he went 7 innings, 5 strikeouts, no earned against the Boston Red Sox, very tough lineup. So I do think Canning could be the better option here on the mound. When you look at these teams offensively, they're kind of similar in the last 30 days against right-handed pitchers. The Angels do have the better numbers, though, in terms of OPS and isolated power. So I do think that the Angels are the play for me. Even though the Astros have the better bullpen, I think the Angels have the better lineup and the better starting pitcher. So give me the Angels here on the money line. Next up, we see the Minnesota Twins taking on the Cleveland Guardians. Tristan McKenzie makes his season debut for the Guardians, and Joe Ryan on the other side for Minnesota. Now, I just don't think this is a very good matchup for Tristan McKenzie in his season debut. I think he'll go on to have a good year for Cleveland, and the Guardians really need him to have a good season in that rotation. But, McKenzie last year against the Twins struggled quite a bit. 31 1/3 innings of work. He had a 5.46 ERA, and the big concern for me, 8 home runs allowed. And we know Tristan McKenzie at times in his career has had issues giving up sharp contact on the home run ball. We saw back in 2021, it's pretty steep, 1.6 home runs per 9 in the major league level. In AAA level in Columbus, a 2.1 home runs per 9 rating. So we know, he certainly is susceptible to giving up the home run ball. We saw that in rehab where he gave up 3 home runs in AAA Columbus this year in 10 1/3 innings of work. So the Twins are a very powerful lineup. They've already gotten to McKenzie quite a bit in recent seasons. McKenzie also had some issues with his control in those rehab starts in AAA. The Twins are a pretty patient lineup at the dish against right-handed pitchers. 3rd highest walk rate at 10.7% in the last 30 days. So to me, with all that being said, I do think McKenzie struggles in this one. I think Joe Ryan is the better option. I'm going to take the Minnesota Twins here on the money line. Next up, it's the Kansas City Royals taking on the Colorado Rockies. Kyle Freeland and Brady Singer are your starters. I'm going to take the over in this ball game. The Rockies have really hit right-handed pitchers very well in the last month or so, and Brady Singer, an ERA currently at 7.12. I do see some improvements in his game, but I also see the walk starting to pile up. The sharp contact is still there, and he hasn't even really faced the toughest of lineups as of late. You look at the last 5 teams he's faced: the A's, the White Sox, the Padres, we mentioned, have struggled against righties. The Tigers aren't the best number; they don't have the best numbers against right-handed pitchers, and the Nationals in his most recent outing. So I do think he will struggle in this game, but I also think Kyle Freeland, we saw him in his last start on the road against the Arizona Diamondbacks, a team that doesn't really hit lefties too well themselves. He had 5 earned runs and 3 homers in that game in a 5-1 loss. So I do think we're going to see some scoring here at Kauffman Stadium. Give me the over in Colorado, Kansas City. Next up, we see the Detroit Tigers taking on the Chicago White Sox. We're going to see Matthew Boyd, the lefty, taking on Michael Kopech in this matchup. Michael Kopech has 29 strikeouts in his last 19 1/3 innings of work with only 4 earned runs combined in those 3 starts. He is really starting to improve his game, and he's really, becoming that strikeout guy that we expected him to be when he was a big-time prospect in the Red Sox and White Sox organizations. And, I do think the Tigers will struggle here offensively. When you look at Chicago, they hit lefties very well this season. 6th best in the last month in team OPS against left-handed pitchers, 7th in isolated power. So I do think that this matchup benefits them offensively as well. Matthew Boyd, a left-handed pitcher, he has struggled this year with a 5.96 ERA. More so at home. He's actually, really struggled at home this season. But on the road still, I don't really trust him. Give me the Chicago White Sox on the money line. Next up is the Seattle Mariners taking on the Texas Rangers. Bryce Miller and Nathan Eovaldi are your starters. I'm going to take the over in this game as we see, two starting pitchers with good ERAs on paper. Bryce Miller 3.00, Eovaldi at 2.42, and Eovaldi just won the American League Pitcher of the Month for the month of May with a .96 ERA in that month. However, you look at the matchups that Eovaldi had, most of those starts were on the road and against weak teams. And we know Eovaldi is pitching a lot better on the road this year than he has at home at Globe Life Field, where he's got an ERA above 4 so far in his home innings of 26 innings of work. I do think the Mariners will be able to get to him for a few runs, but you also see on the other side, Bryce Miller, last start, he gave up 8 earned runs, 2 homers, 11 base hits to the New York Yankees, and a 10-4 Mariners loss. The Rangers have crushed right-handed pitchers at home this season. In the last 30 days, they're number 3 in isolated power, they're number 2 in team OPS. I think they get to Miller in this one early and often. Rangers don't have the best bullpen, so give me the over here in Seattle, Texas. Next up, we see the Baltimore Orioles taking on the San Francisco Giants. Tyler Wells and Anthony DeSclafani are your starters. I do think Tyler Wells is the better option here on the mound, and Anthony DeSclafani hasn't been the sharpest this season at Oracle Park, a 4.17 ERA at home this season compared to his road innings, 2.64 ERA in 30 2/3 innings of work. He's given up a lot of base hits at home this year, a 271 opponent's batting average. We even saw in his last start, which was solid against the Pittsburgh Pirates, 7 innings, 3 earned runs. Gave up a home run and 8 base hits in that game, only 2 strikeouts in that one. The Orioles are a solid team offensively. I do think they'll be able to get to him. Tyler Wells has been very sharp this year. His last start, 6 innings, 1 run, 7 Ks against the Cleveland Guardians. Now, the Orioles bats didn't back him up in that one. I think they will back him up in this one. So give me the Baltimore Orioles on the money line on the road. In our next game, we see the Atlanta Braves taking on the Arizona Diamondbacks. Mike Soroka and Zach Gallen are your starters. It's just really tough to go against Zach Gallen when he's pitching at Chase Field. He had another really good outing in his last start against the Rockies, and we just mentioned the Rockies have been crushing right-handed pitchers as of late. But Gallen, although he got into a couple of jams in that game, he still went 6 innings of scoreless baseball with 7 strikeouts. His ERA now at home, .66 in 41 innings of work with 54 strikeouts and no home runs allowed. Now, you're facing one of the more powerful lineups in baseball in this game, so maybe that first home run does occur in this game, but I still think Gallen's good enough to grab the win and maybe a run line cover here for Arizona. As you know, Mike Soroka, his first start back at the major league level, wasn't the best. It wasn't the worst. He went 6 innings, 4 earned runs, a home run allowed. Now, that's really the big concern. 3 strikeouts. I'd like to see him miss some more bats, 2 walks to go with it. Arizona's just been so good against right-handed pitchers this season. They don't strike out much. They get on base. They're a very good team at home. They're playing great baseball overall. I'm going to take the Arizona Diamondbacks on the money line and the run line in this one. Next up, we see the Chicago Cubs taking on the San Diego Padres. We're going to see Ryan Weathers and Marcus Stroman on the mound in this one. Now, when you look at the Chicago Cubs offensively, in the last month or so, they haven't had the best numbers against left-handed pitchers, right around 23rd, 25th in team OPS and isolated power. But I got to say, they're better numbers than the San Diego Padres have against right-handed pitchers in the last month, where San Diego's ranked 28th in baseball in team OPS, 26th in isolated power. Pretty high strikeout rate as well. And Marcus Stroman, I think, is the much better option here on the mound in terms of the starting pitching matchup. He's got a 2.59 ERA. Now, he's been better at Wrigley Field this year, but still a solid 3.33 ERA on the road. He keeps the ball on the ground, and the Padres continue to struggle against right-handed pitchers. Ryan Weathers, 4.28 ERA now. His last start, 4 innings, 3 earned runs, 3 walks and a homer against the Marlins. Really wasn't the sharpest there. His offense backed him up in that game. That's why they went on to win 9-4. But I don't like his chances in this one. Give me the Chicago Cubs on the money line. Next up, we see the final game for Sunday's card in Major League Baseball, your Sunday Night Baseball contest on ESPN. Domingo Germán and Bobby Miller for this Yankees-Dodgers matchup. I do think with the weather looking like it's going to give a boost to the hitters in this game, I like the over in this one. Domingo Germán has not been that great on the road this year, 5.01 ERA. His last start was his first start back from suspension. He had 4 earned runs, 7 base hits, and a homer against the Mariners, 3 walks to go with it. Now, the Yankees bats, scored 10 runs in that game. That was the game against Bryce Miller. So Germán was able to go deeper in that game. But, I don't really trust him at Dodger Stadium against one of the tougher lineups in baseball against right-handed pitchers. Germán overall this year, a 3.98 ERA, but 4.4 FIP and a 4.21 xFIP. The Dodgers, like I said, some of the best numbers against righties this year. In the last 30 days, 3rd in baseball in isolated power and 4th in team OPS. But on the other side, you got a team with even better numbers against righties in the last 30 days. The New York Yankees, they're 3rd in team OPS. They're number 1 in isolated power. They're facing Bobby Miller, a young starter who's had good results so far, 1.64 ERA. but a pretty high 3.34 xFIP. I do see some regression in his game. Doesn't really strike out a lot of batters. Give me the New York Yankees, Los Angeles Dodgers game to go over in Sunday Night Baseball. And that's it. Those are the games for Sunday in Major League Baseball. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe. And don't forget to put your baseball picks in the comment section below. Again, if you're looking for my best bets, you can find those at Pick Dawgz Premium. As always, this is Ron Romanelli. Good luck.